Welcome to Tramlines, a podcast from Agrii. I'm your host, Tony Smith, putting your questions to the experts. Today we are recording live here at AgriiFocus at North Farm near Marlborough in Wiltshire. Arable farming is facing an ever more increasingly challenging environment. Improving resilience of your soils, crops and business are key to delivering those productivity gains. But the question is, well, what actions can you take on farm? And what technologies can you adopt? And to help us answer those questions, we have our panel of speakers. Please welcome Alan at Clifton-Holt, who farms in Kent, James Bonner, who farms in Northamptonshire, and Ruth Mann, Agrii's Head of Integrated Crop Technologies. So the first thing I'm going to ask is for them to introduce themselves, and then we're going to hear a little bit about their story before we throw it open to the floor, so to speak, for you to ask questions of them. And they might ask some questions back too.
I'm Alan Clifton-Holt. I farm on the south coast in Kent, just on Romney Marsh. We're a 3,500 acre arable farm. Doing quite diverse things and diverse business activities as well.
Hi, I'm James Bonner. I farm with my dad in Northamptonshire, and we have a beef and arable farm. The beef side being made up of suckler cows. And then we grow forage and cereal crops within our arable rotation.
Thank you.
And I'm Ruth Mann. I'm Head of Integrated Crop Technologies with Agrii, which means I look after all of the R&D team and the RISA Contour Digital team.
What we're going to hear now is their story, in a snapshot, if you like, about how these two gentlemen have innovated on their farm. What ideas have they come up with? Are they the same as yours, or are they different? So let's hear their story. We've got about 3 slides per for each of you. And then, Ruth, you're going to talk about innovative tools, aren't you? What you can use, what's coming along in terms of technology.
We are down right on the south coast of Romney Marsh. A couple of years ago, probably 10, 15 years ago, we realised we had a real problem with blackgrass. And so a big driver for us is how do we create profitability within the business? And for us, it starts with cover crops and diversifying our rotation. So we looked at how we could get wider rotations, but also how do we set ourselves up for spring cropping to get away from blackgrass. For us, cover crops are the key for that, where we try and cultivate in the autumn, set ourselves up for over the winter, and we can direct drill in the spring. Do you want to go for the first one? Yep. So we've brought a couple of different crops into the farm. We've got a 9-year rotation with 13 different crops, including cover crops. One of the crops we brought in is this, which is flax. It's very similar, the same family as linseed, but we grow it for the fibre. So this is my Frenchman. He brought this machine over from France last year, so we're second year of growing it. The machine is a death trap. Only he can drive it. This coming year, we've got a better machine that is UK safety required. But the idea is that's pulled. We're actually going to start pulling the flax in next week. It's laid on the ground for a month. In the month, it's turned in. Don't think of a hay turner. Think of I suppose the best way is it literally picks it up and just places it back down in rows, and then it's round baled up, and then that is sent off to France to be made into linen. So hugely grown over here in the 60s, but when we found plastic, it kind of disappeared over here. But France has grown it a lot. So go to the next one. We've also started growing a bit of mustard. This is our mustard that's a bit Spitfire-y. And this actually happened in our field this May. We had a Spitfire. They fly fairly regularly over us, and it crash landed into our field. I'm the only grower outside of kind of a Cambridgeshire, North Cambridgeshire area that grows mustard. And part of that was us looking to diversify their supply chains, they had less risk, but also realising that France is getting hotter, where a lot of mustard's grown. So where they used to grow it down as far as Paris, it's too hot there now, so it's driving it further north. And part of our diversification of cropping is to look at how we can pull those crops from France into our rotation.
Yeah, and so I belong to part of the Vardestat Rapid religion, so I will not be convinced otherwise that is the best drill on the market for doing everything that you could want of it. I will admit the last few autumns things have become more tricky. Back in 2019, very little got drilled. So in the spring we had a large acreage to drill, and at the same time our neighbour had recently bought an old 8-metre rapid. He wasn't sure how to operate it, so we sort of formed a bit of an agreement where I put my tractor on his larger drill because we were running a 4-metre at the time. So I pulled the bigger drill on our land and then drilled his as well. And whilst operating the 8-metre rapid, I realised that it was travelling a lot lighter on the fields than our 4-metre. So I started to look at why this is, and essentially a 4-metre will lift on the middle section of tyres, which is 12 wheels when you turn on the headland, and with its weight that then equated to around 500 kilos per wheel. But when you step up to a 6-metre or an 8-metre that lift on all the wheels across the back, the weight each wheel is then carrying is reduced on there by 200 kilos a wheel, which makes a significant difference to how well that drill would travel in the wet. So in the spring of last year, I finally convinced my dad that we needed to increase our drilling capacity from a 4-metre to a 6-metre, not necessarily because we had the acres to justify the 6-metre, but because the 6-metre would give us what we needed in the autumn to actually get the drilling done. So I think we can go. And one of the other changes I've made to the drill is to remove the system discs, which are quite heavy, and changed them to a system tine, that's the working element of the drill at the front. So that reduced the weight by about 600 kilos on the 6-metre drill. And because that weight is carried on the front of the drill, that takes a lot of weight off the back wheels of the tractor, which then helps that travel. Yeah. And also regarding the machinery that we're running on the farm, we're going back to owning older tractors to do the simple jobs to keep our costs down on the newer machinery. Because essentially pulling a Sumo Trio or a Simba Colty press is a very simple job. You don't need a lot of sophistication. So we can afford to run something that's older and is basically just pure grunt to do a lot of that hard work. And then we've got the newer tractors to do the more high-tech jobs like fertiliser, spinning, the drilling, and that one also does some baling as well.
Thank you very much indeed, James. I'm sure you've got some questions yourself, but I wonder how many of you put that amount of attention to detail when it comes to your cultivation equipment. I mean, do you think you're unusual?
Yeah, but not necessarily because of this.
Oh, I see. Okay, that's quite frank, isn't it? But that is a lot of attention to detail, isn't it?
Yeah, well, when you're sat in a tractor for days on end, you've got to think of something.
You could listen to tram lines. I mean, that's one thing you could be doing. I mean, we've got 120 episodes now, you know. But seriously, that's where you're doing your thinking. That's where you're reflecting, is it? Seriously?
Yeah, I mean, things are going okay, but it doesn't mean they can't be improved. And just because you did it that way the year before doesn't mean that it's going to be the best way to do it the year after. So I always like thinking about what we can improve on.
And so you said, well, when they are a success, does it go wrong sometimes when you try out something new? Yeah,
sometimes it goes wrong. But I farm with my dad, so I always say if something goes right, it was our decision. If it goes wrong, it was my decision. And
that's fair, isn't it? Yeah, that's absolutely fair. I like that. Okay, if there's dads and brought along sons, that's going to be interesting on the way home, isn't it? So let's hear from Ruth. We'll get your slide deck up. Thank you very much indeed, James. Very good.
Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the innovative work that we've done at Agrii. And at Agrii, we have developed an innovations technology group, which Jonathan Trotter leads. So you've all already met Jonathan today out in the field. And while trying to think about what sort of innovation we could stand here today and talk about, there's huge amounts. We settled on nutrient use efficiency, very topical. So I thought I'd introduce some of the results that have come through from one of our digital technology farms, and this is the field at Revesby that we've been looking at in the past year. We only look at technology that really is ready to come out on farm. We're not looking at things that are really academic, so we're looking at these technology readiness levels of 5 and above. And the technology we're going to look at today, if Tony moves on the slide, is these nitrogen sensors. And we've put these nitrogen sensors out into the field in multiple different trials and at Revesby to look at what happens when we apply that fertiliser to the crop. So the picture we've got on my side of the screen is what the farm did. So these were the nitrogen applications that the farm put out. 28th of February, 110 kilos of nitrogen was put out. And on the 5th of April, another 110 kilos of nitrogen was put out. And on your right-hand side of the screen was the nitrogen that was put out according to what the technology was telling us. And this was using Skippy Scout, which Jonathan demonstrated today, to have a look at the crop and tell us what the green area index was, also looking at what the nitrogen was within the soil and what we were expecting that crop to achieve to let us know exactly how much nitrogen we needed to apply. And it was applying 53 kilos in February and 103 kilos in March. Now, the lines are a little bit faint, but on this side you can see there's blue, yellow and green lines. And the blue lines is measuring the nitrate that's really gone down below the level of the rooting of the crop. So we were actually losing nitrate from that application on the 28th of February. And again, you can see there was another blue peak after April. So again, we're losing a little bit of nitrogen there. But where we were using the technology to tell us what to do, we don't get those blue peaks. So we weren't losing anywhere near the amount of nitrate to the environment from using the lower amounts of nitrogen on the technology side. We were keeping that nitrate levels in that 10 and 20 centimetre layer that we needed to so that it was consistently available to the crop. And by doing this, we were able to reduce the amount of spend by Revesby on nitrate that year by 24% and reduce the amount of carbon dioxide emissions by over 40%. So again, we saw some really good benefits from actually using that technology to help inform us exactly what we needed to do. Now, this is fine if you have the sensors out in the field, but if you go on to the next slide, if we don't have the sensors out in the field, we can do something similar using satellite technology. So this is a field of grass. This was in March. My side of the field, your left-hand side of the field, both sides of the field got exactly the same amount of nitrate, but on my side, it didn't get any liquid safe and release within that nitrate. But the right-hand side of the field did. Now, look, this is looking at GCVI index. That means that the grass that's on the right-hand side was denser, was longer, had better growth, because the satellite imagery is telling us that that was happening. We don't get the same sort of resolution as we do with the drones and the Skippy Scout, but we can still see that coming through from the satellite imagery. So both of those have led us on to, next slide please, Tony, to looking at how can we actually use this data and information to start to predict what we need to do in the future. So in a project that I love the fact that the European Space Agency is funding this, they want to make better use of their satellites, and they think that agriculture is an area that we can really, really use the technology that they've got. So they've funded a project. We've already done year one. So we have already developed this yield prediction model using all of the data that's come through from Contour, all anonymised, but we now can use that model to start to predict what's happening in the field. And the project that we're now about to go into this year is start to develop that decision support tool and look at how we can take the information that's already been collected, consume that, and then apply that back to all of the crops that we have out in field. So we'll start doing that this year. And we will look at specifically how we can use all of these together to really focus in on what happens with nutrient use efficiency for the future.
If you have any questions for our speakers here today, well, why not ask them? Simply email info@agrii.co.uk. Who has a question you'd like to ask one of these speakers? Maybe you'd like to introduce yourself as to your name and where you work, and who's your question aimed at?
So my name's Nick. I work for Agrii. I've not been here very long, but I'm a new employee and area business manager for the South. My question to James really is about your black grass. You say that black grass in your rotation and everything else. Have you found going into grass and maize as well, has that helped you control the black grass coming into when you come out of the grass rotation and going back into arable?
Yeah, so our silage lays are normally down for 2 years because we found that was giving better black grass control than just a 1-year silage lay. But obviously if you go to a 3-year silage lay, you then lose too much output in the 3rd year on the grass yield. So we found 2 years to be the sort of the sweet spot for a silage lay. And then, yeah, maize being a spring sown crop gives good black grass control. The only trouble with maize is maize harvest, which has been tricky for the last couple of years. So that can put you a step back on black grass control, as we found with one field this year that was late drilled after the maize, and then the weather broke, so we couldn't get the preem on. And then we did spray that one off in the spring because the black grass was getting too bad in it.
Okay. Who else got next question then?
Hi, Josh from Agrii. Just wondering for Chris, what's the market accessibility for your flax in France like? How difficult is it getting it over there and selling it, and yeah, that sort of area?
So flax over there is a massive crop, really sought after. It's actually grown for, you would think in like a normal crop over here, you'd grow it in the normal year and then you supply it in the following year like we would do with wheat. Over there it's it's quite different. You actually supply it, you tend it over, say, in Christmas time following your harvest, but it might not be processed or used for 2 years. So it works on a very different cycle, and the whole point of it is to try and level out what their supply chain into the textiles industry in China. France is the number one place to grow it. It's a growing industry. Not only is it used for textiles, but a lot's now used into plane manufacturing and car manufacturing and things like that. So it's a growth industry as I'm looking at. And it's outside food, which is quite handy.
Yeah, fascinating. Anyone else got a question?
Hello, Peter Wilson, iFarm just above Ramsbury. Question for Ruth, the nitrogen sense in the soil, how did you come up, especially with the starting amount of fertiliser in the season, did you just split it to see the difference?
The sensors measure the amount of nitrate that's moving through the profile, so that's the actual losses that we're seeing. We'll then use that information to go back in the next year and look at how we could better do that. So, for example, Peter has already decided this year that A, he's going to use LiquiSafe with his nitrogen, and B, that he won't put as much on as early, and use the Skippy Scout. Yes, and it's all about collecting that data, applying exactly what you two are doing, collecting the data, applying the data to what you're doing that year, and seeing whether that helps or it doesn't. And if it helps, then you move a bit further towards it the next year. If it doesn't, you come back a bit and try something else.
Right, so look, it's a warm day. Thank you ever so much for being in the room. I'm going to hand over to Ian now to say some thanks, but thank you for being so attentive. Thank you, Alan, James and Ruth, for sharing your knowledge and experience here at AgriiFocus. And to hear more from experts and farmers alike, why not tune in to Tramlines, with recent episodes recorded live from Groundswell, a blackcurrant farm at harvest, and many other episodes available right now for your listening. If you have any questions for our experts that you'd like answered, email them in to info@agrii.co.uk. That's it for this podcast, but do tune in again as we meet the experts throughout the season, exploring the many immediate and longer-term questions for growers and farmers in the UK. See you next time.